So Shirodhara, that kind of caught my attention. So tell me, if somebody wants to get the Shirodhara, then who should get the Shirodhara? Then, as you said, people with a lot of stress. But how this procedure is done, in a short, how would you describe that procedure?
Shirodhara can be done actually for anyone, unless they have some brain tumor or something like that, something that the doctor might, ask them not to go for it because there is a lot of oil. It's warm oil. It's mostly sesame oil. Tel is the main one that is used as a base, and then also according to the body constitution, different oils are added to that because then it will help the patient and the person to see if they are trying to pacify vata or pitta or kapha, and then the warm oil is the warm oil stays in a container, and it is poured down the forehead on the
third eye.
on the third eye, on the marma, and then it just goes through, and of course the person is sleeping and lying down, and then it's just poured and it's just collected afterwards to if they have to reuse it. But it's a constant about 15-20 minutes of the oil that falls, dripping of the oil.
Okay, on that short note, we're going to take a little short break and then we'll be coming right after the break. Welcome back to Chai Time. As you know, we are talking to Dr. Falguni Gandhi, and she is talking to us about Ayurveda. Before we went on a break, we talked about the Shirodhara. Shirodhara is a process where a person can just lie down on their back on the straight surface, and a warm oil it's collected in a pot, and it has been it's generally placed right above your forehead, and it can drip by drip, a drop by drop in the middle eye, which is like middle of the forehead. That's your third eye, and it's on that, and the rest of the oil gets into the hair, and then later on it be collected at the bottom, whatever's rest, and then that's the called Shirodhara. Shiro is a sir, and dhara is a flow. It's like a head flow. The oil flowing through your head is what it means. So on after that, how can we describe a person from if the person is vata, a person is pitta, a person is kapha, what kind of dosh this person can have in Ayurveda? How do you tell us about dosha?
Yeah. The dosha starts from the 5 elements in nature, that are space, air, fire, water and earth.
Can you repeat one more time?
Yeah, which is Prithvi, Jal, Tej, Vayu and Akash, which is space, air, fire, water and earth. Now these 5 elements, when you put them in perspective with the body, the space and the air element, which are very similar, of course everyone can imagine those, they form the vata. The fire element, a little bit with the water element, forms the pitta, and then the water and the kapha element forms the kapha. Those are the heavier.
Water and the ether.
No, yeah, and no, not water and the water and the earth. The earth, yeah, Prithvi. Prithvi and Jal form the kapha because those are the heavy, subtle, kind of elements, and then they are very. Some of the properties are very similar, and so that's how the vata, pitta, kapha is in relation with the body. And then so a person body constitution can be either vata, pitta or kapha, or they can be a combination. It can be vata pitta, vata kapha, pitta kapha, or it can be the 7th body constitution is the vata, pitta, kapha, where a person genetically, all 3 are present in the similar proportion. No, they are all present in our bodies and in everything all around us. The space, air, fire, water, earth is everywhere. But the thing is, it's how much it is in our body, and so there are different proportions of that. And usually, like a genetic base, when we say, oh, genetically we have this in our family or within us, then that's what we mean is that we have this particular vata, pitta and kapha proportions in different amounts. And so the main thing in Ayurveda is to go back to the balance yourself.
Let me get this straight. If somebody has a vata body, we call it them a vata body. So they also have a kapha and a pit present.
Exactly.
But not as much.
Exactly. That's
so what would be the highest quantity you would say to have inside the body to be considered as a vata body or a pitta body or a kapha body?
That's a very good question. The body constitution is so complex. It's fairly complex, I would say. So what happens is I have to have a series of about 40 questions to be able to come to derive to that answer of each individual person, and everyone is very unique. You know, there's not another person like you probably in the whole cosmos, or maybe somewhere, I don't know, but not on this earth at least. And so all the different things from, you know, the dreams to your bowel movements, to your appetite, to the way you walk, to your eye proportions, the teeth, skin, everything. There's a lot of different stuff, and that's how you derive to who you originally are, you know, what you were born with. And when the main key in Ayurveda is when you try to go back and balance yourself to that level of which is your normal within level, then that's your healthiest you know, being. There's not necessary that you know, a Kapha body constitution is more healthier than a Vata body constitution, but when you keep it in balance, that's the key thing.
So the balance of the all elements and the balance of all the chemicals in your body,
within you,
inside of you, is what makes the healthy body.
Exactly.
In Ayurveda. That's very, very good to know. Okay, now I would say I have few questions about an Ayurveda too, but before I go into that, I just want to address that. We do appreciate that, you know, you come to the studio and you're giving these answers, and you took the time off from your busy life, because I know that you're a mother of two. You're a mother of two daughters, and your husband is also, Dr. Desai is also, he's running his clinic, and yes, and he's also has his clinic and everything, but you are managing his clinic.
And I do manage his clinic.
Tell me why. You have a degree from India, you have a degree from Bombay, BMS degree, but you did not decide to go into do your own medical practice, but you decided to stay with your husband and help him in his clinic and his business and take care of the children. Was that the good decision for you? Were you happy? Are you regretting that decision?
Well, initially I was
as a woman, you know, I want the woman to know.
Oh yeah, I think it is very, very important. It's a very wonderful question that I'm glad that you're asking me this question. When I first came to America, of course, I was on licensed practice here, and my husband went through his exams and got his residency, and I supported him. I was told, like, in our culture, and I'm very, very proud that I did, because today I have a daughter who is in medical school and another one probably on her way. But the more important thing is that at that time I always felt like that it's not fair. I went to college, you know, university for 7.5 years. I worked so hard. One of the subjects I even got highest in the university. And why am I doing this? Why am I, you know, being initially maybe a receptionist to a secretary to, you know, doing accounting, and now being office administrator of 2 clinics. But looking at the whole thing, and my dad taught me something really nice. You cannot be on all the horses at the same time. And I think I'm glad that I did my priorities straight, even though I of course got some help from my parents, you know, my elders. And I think that's a very important thing too. When you're young, you might feel that that's not the right thing to do. Why are they telling you to do this and that? But in the long run, you kind of know that that is the very most important thing to do. And today I feel like I've been able to achieve, you know, everything around me because I had that patience. You know, many times patience is very important, especially with us women, because we always, as you all know, that have a million things to do.
Yes, you know, going back to our issue, we always discuss that in our child time. It's better to be a career woman, or it's better to be a good housewife. So here's a perfect example for that, is that, you know, you can have a degree, and then if you have a proper degree, if you have gone to college and you've done so much, and if it goes to waste, you really don't feel a complete person, because you feel like, you know, something is missing. You did not do justice to your education, and you got all this education, but you're not doing anything with it. Right. Now, on the other hand, if you just raise the children and don't do anything to the career, we just mentioned that, but on the other hand, if you only do a career, you become a career woman, no matter you become a millionaire, you do so much for your career, you become a very successful businesswoman, entrepreneur, engineer, astronaut, whatever. But again, if you're not happy in your family life, if you don't have a good children, if you don't have a good husband that cares for you, if you don't have your family put together, you will the women never feel complete. They always feel like there's something is missing, because there's something that a womanhood that kind of drives them crazy, like they're not doing something right to their womanlyhood. So the perfect example for that is, like, she had a degree, she's a doctor from India, but now she's helping her husband in the clinic and utilizing all her you know, education that she had learned, and raising the beautiful children at home and keeping the family life happy. So I think it's a very commendable job, and balancing everything together as only a right person in a right state of mind can do.
And one thing thinking about that I was going to add is, like, when I was working with Maharishi, of course I was fortunate to be at that young age. You know, I just come from India, had to finish my Ayurveda, and when I was working for Maharishi, I got a chance to have George Hamilton as my patient, and then later on also when my husband got his residency, they were trying to have me back. It's like, no, you know, you have all these opportunities. Elizabeth Taylor was going to come there, and Michael Jackson was going to come there, and then I somehow, you know, even though it was very tempting to, you know, let my husband go do his residency and I would continue this at this nice opportunity that when I was working with Deepak Chopra, I felt like I'm glad I didn't do that, because, you know, you can be happy, like my father says, you know, like you have 20% of each, and you know, your of course your knowledge, your fame, your children, your husband, or your spouse, and then your respect in the samaj, you know, in the society, in the community. And if you have, you can make 20% one place, but you have zero somewhere else, you might not be happy. But if you have the more of each of the 20% that you achieve, you ultimately have a higher
higher score altogether.
And so I was always very respectful of that thing, and even though it was very tempting to leave that place, to stay back, I'm glad that what I did, and now I will have the opportunity. Now that my kids are grown and older, I will have all these opportunities to come and
do what I like, are always there,
and to give out back to the community. That'd be nice. Yeah,
absolutely. On this note, we're gonna take a short break and we'll be right back.